Oh my God, I'm such a moron. I hadn't pressed go live, Clayton. I'm such a dork. I haven't used this in a while. All right. Hopefully now we'll get some people here. Oh, darn, John. So it looks like for some reason, it's inviting you as a guest. And I want viewers. I want to see viewers. Nice. So I'm going to remove you for a second, John. Don't, it's not, I'm obviously messing this up big time. Why can't I get the link for just regular viewers? God darn it. I don't know why this is not working properly. Stop it. All right, Clayton, I think I figured it out. I am streaming to YouTube, and I was sending everybody the invitation for what I sent you to be a guest. So I think I've got it figured out now. So now we're going to get going. I apologize for the technical difficulties, everybody. That cost us 7 minutes. I'm so sorry. I haven't used this platform in a while, and I obviously should have done a dry run. But thank you. We're ready to go. Today, our guest is Clayton Sandell. But before we do that, I get to do one thing I haven't done in a while, which is do an intro. I haven't had an intro on my page for a very long time, and I get to do it here now. And Clayton's going to have to endure it in silence. right. Without further ado, I want to introduce my guest for today, Star Wars writer, Star Wars author, and all-around fantastic guy, Clayton Sandell. How's it going, Clayton?
That was the fanciest opening I've ever seen. That is very nice.
That's absolutely not true. And let me apologize right off the bat for the technical difficulties. You are someone who comes from excellence in broadcasting, so that must have been torture.
Oh no, that's fine. No, I've endured plenty of technical issues over the years. That was completely not a big deal. How you doing?
We are being watched on YouTube, so I will go to the questions from the group over there when we have a moment. I think I see the number of viewers we got here, but guys, our viewers, obviously I'm starting off very choppy. Please try to put, just say a hello or something to see, so I can see where the comments are going to be coming in, and I'll share them as they come up. I'd really appreciate it. Clayton, thank you very much again for joining us. We'll just pretend we're having a dialogue. You know the business more than I do. And thank you for putting up with me.
Not at all, my friend.
All right. So Clayton, let's start off with your bona fides. Can you give us a little bit about you, your elevator speech? Who the heck are you? Why do we love you?
Why do you love me?
I'll give a big spiel about why.
No, I spent a lot of time in broadcast TV news. I kind of, even as a kid, started. I was in video, did a lot of video production, radio, and eventually got a job at ABC News. Working in Washington, D.C. I was a producer behind the scenes for a long time, and then kind of made the transition into being an on-air correspondent based here in Denver, but kind of traveling all over the country and sometimes the world, and that was all great and fun. And then the pandemic layoffs of 2021 hit, and I left ABC, and I was then joined up with a former ABC boss of mine at Scripps News, and was a correspondent there for a few years. And now, like you said, I'm writing and consulting, doing a bunch of random stuff at the moment, but all of it kind of fun and rewarding, and keeping very busy most days.
Thank you very much. Imperial Walker Inc., we're gaga about behind the scenes people with Star Wars.
Yeah. And I guess,
how did you wind up working with these folks? How did you get connected?
Yeah. So, first of all, like I think a lot of people in the group, we all have this this love of behind the scenes things. Anyway, this is the oldest book that I own in my library, and got it in like Christmas 1986, and just kind of dove into it when we thought there wasn't going to be any more Star Wars. And so the next best thing was learning about how they made them. And so just devoured, all of the documentaries and books and stuff that was behind the scenes. And so I had the interest, and then I was, always a fan, but I had never gone to a Star Wars celebration. I had until 2015, and I was just going to go kind of for fun once the announcement was made that we were going to be getting episode 7, and was just going to go and have fun and go to my first celebration and see what it was all about. And my boss at ABC at the time, just a couple days before, said, since you're going to be there anyway, why don't you do some reporting on it? And it was like, okay, cool. So I spent the couple days at Celebration doing stories, and that kind of opened a door. It wasn't something I was doing all the time, but I always said if I could cover all the normal stuff that I was covering, hard news stories, if I could mix in some sort of behind the scenes Star Wars story once or twice a year, then it was a nice balance to do that. And so again, I was not somebody who really wanted to be on the red carpet interviewing the cast, asking them the same questions that they've heard a million times. My interest was in ILM and how ILM and Sky Sound were doing, creating all the cool things that they do. And so the first big story that I pitched and got to do was after Rogue One came out, we went up and did a whole piece for Nightline on with all the artists and the folks who had worked on the Leia and Tarkin stuff in that film, and it just kind of grew from there. Once that part of it, once I realized I could make Star Wars and ILM and Skywalker Sound sort of part of my professional life, I just would pitch those stories all the time. So we ended up doing a bunch of little fun featurettes on Solo, the visual effects of Solo. We did Rogue One. We did a big a producer by the name of Ronnie Polidoro and I did a half-hour sound design documentary on The Last Jedi that was a lot of fun to work on. And so, yeah, it wasn't constant, but it was something that I could kind of do every once in a while that was really fun. And so that, just over the years, just sort of built up my relationship with all these folks. And let's see, I think we did the last big effects sort of related behind the scenes thing that I did for TV was the which well was the closing of the old Kerner Boulevard facility in the fall of 23. And then last summer, the folks at ILM came and asked if I wanted to join their editorial team to kind of work on feature stories for ILM and Skywalker Sound and sort of legacy stuff. So we're, writing about things that they've worked on in the past, decades in the past. For example, I'm in the middle of working on one on the 40th anniversary of Goonies.
Nice.
Which is kind of fun. And then new stuff. I wrote a thing on Skeleton Crew, and the second half of that will be published here probably in the next week or so, I think. But yeah, so it was like this total dream to be able to join this team and pitch whatever story I want, and be able to talk to a lot of people that are in this book that are just legends that we've known for years. And so that's been cool. I talked to the other day, I talked to Bill George, and Bill, of course, famously, made his own X-wing or Y-wing model, that was used in Return of the Jedi. As the story went, they had given the Y-wing model that they had during Star Wars, had given it to Alan Ladd Jr., the executive at 20th Century Fox that had given the green light for Star Wars. And so when they needed one for Jedi, they didn't have one, but Bill George said, I have this one that I built at home, and he brought it in, and apparently Lorne Peterson thought it was better than the one that they had originally. And so I was talking to Bill because of this 40th anniversary of Goonies thing that I'm working on, and he and his team built the Inferno, the pirate ship in Goonies, as a model, and it's extremely intricately detailed because they thought it was going to be used for a lot more shots than it was, and ended up it's only in like a few shots at the end of the movie because they ended up building a big set at Warner Brothers, Burbank Studios, now Warner Brothers, to do it. But it was fun talking to him because not only is he like this legendary ILMer, but he also, for fans of Skeleton Crew, if you watch the credits, Bill shows up. He has a model maker credit in Skeleton Crew.
Wow.
And I asked him I said, what's that about? And he told me the reason behind that is years ago, for fun, he built a mashup of the old Space 1999 ship and the pirate ship that was the original. They built a pirate ship that was supposed to be Han Solo's ship in Star Wars, right? Then they discovered that the Space 1999 ship was very similar, and so they changed the design and ended up using what we now know as the Millennium Falcon. Well, Bill took those two designs, which were kind of similar, and mashed them up into something called the Millennium Eagle. And he told me that somebody at ILM knew that he had done this, and so when they were making Skeleton Crew, they called him up and said, "Can we scan that model And so he said, yeah, sure. So they took it, scanned it, and it pops up in the background of all the ships that are docked at the Port Borgo scenes in Skeleton Crew. So they gave him a model maker credit naturally. So it was cool because you have Bill George, who goes back to, like, I think Star Trek II was his first ILM model making job. So, you know, a guy that goes back to Star Trek II, Return of the Jedi, all of these things, and now is you know, credited in Skeleton Crew. So it's like, it's fun stories like that just that I love to kind of chase down and have fun.
I love that. His first model that he worked on at ILM was the Reliant.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Con. So
very cool. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for giving us that background. So what piece that you've worked on has been your favorite so far? What have you been like, in terms of where it took you in terms of research or conversations or interviews, fact gathering?
You know, I think that Rogue One piece that I did for Nightline was great in that it was sort of the first time that I got to really get to know people within ILM who had actually done work on these films, and it was so eye-opening to see how everything was done, how they sort of had this reverence for the past, and how they went and digitized all of these plastic model pieces and put them in their virtual model building, you know, bash up kits. It was just neat. There were a lot of aspects that were incredibly fun to do. But that I think just because it was the first one was special to me in that way. But yeah, it's been cool. You know, we did you know, we got to go up and spend a few days at Skywalker Ranch to do the Last Jedi sound design documentary, and that was cool because, again, when you're up there for a few days at a time and you're actually seeing how people work, it just you know, it pulls back the curtain and you get this just much greater appreciation for the artistry that goes into every aspect of what they do. And I think that's the neat part for me. I've always said I don't want to be a director. I don't want to be an actor. I don't want to be, you know, a movie producer or anything like that. But I love hearing and telling the stories about creative people and how they solve creative challenges, and how they do what they do. The mechanics of it, the artistry of it, it's just all fascinating to me.
This interview is about you, but I agree, because in my interactions with them, I'm a finance guy by nature. That's what I do on my day job. I don't have a creative bone in my body, and when I interact with them, it's so clear that they operate in a different realm.
Totally.
And it's mind-boggling, and everything they do is about creating and problem solving. So it's always startling to see how they're able to approach these problems.
I got to spend, I'm still like kind of pinching myself, but I got to spend Saturday night, several hours Saturday night with Dennis Murin. And, you know, you're walking around with this guy and you're just like thinking about all of the things that are in his brain. And it's sort of a little overwhelming to think about, you know, what he did, you know, just sort of taught himself computer graphics so that they could figure out how to do Jurassic Park. I mean, it was just like, you know, phenomenal level of creativity and ingenuity. And so many people there today have it. And it's so impressive to see. And you're like, man, if I could just have a little bit of that brain power, you know, it'd be great. Like it's fun to watch, and just very, you know, it's just impressive, the whole place.
It is, absolutely. So I saw that you went out to LA on Saturday with the Van Nuys.
Yeah.
Is that like a paid gig? Is that just you going out? How does that work? I'm just curious.
That was me going out on behalf of ILM. So it was a thing that was we had sort of discovered this event that they were throwing. This group, My Valley Pass, it's a kind of a news site in San Fernando Valley in Southern California. And I had seen some advertisement for it a few weeks ago, and I called up the guys at ILM, and I was like, this could be interesting. I don't know the last time that Dennis has been to this building. I'm sure he's been there at some point, but it might be fun to just kind of go out there and check it out. And as it turned out, he had been there, but he had not been inside the building. The last time he was there, it was basically the parking lot, and he kind of walked in the front office, but he had not toured that facility in 50 years since leaving it. And that was pretty neat to see, because he, like all of us, after that amount of time, you might not remember what the insides of the place looked like. He remembered where things generally were, but what really got him was when first of all, he just kind of shows up, and they were doing tours of the building all afternoon, like hour-long tours. And at one point I was kind of following this tour, and Dennis just walks in and joins the tour. And on the ILM website, you'll see the moment that he walks into the tour. I was rolling, and we put it in our little video, but he just kind of casually walked up and joined the tour and continued on with them through the building. And what really got him was what he said, walking into the old screening room, the projection room, where they would go over dailies, look at the shots that they had done the day before. Because, of course, back in those days, you had to wait for the film to be developed overnight and before you could watch it. And he said that walking into that projection room, all these memories came flooding back of sitting in there with George, going over each shot, figuring out what was working, figuring out what wasn't working, figuring out why it wasn't working, and then what they needed to do next. All the while, the whole schedule is on the wall, and they know they've only got limited amount of time to get everything done, and so the pressure was on to get everything done. And he said that out of everything in the that he saw there that night, that old projection room, which the layout of the building is still basically the same, even though it looks a little different. But he said going into that projection room really, really brought him back to 1975, 76. It was crazy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So tell us, I was excited because I knew you would bring the production value with the background. What can you tell us about the models? We see that really cool display.
Oh, yeah. These are all crimes of opportunity from Facebook Marketplace. I didn't set out to say, oh, I want to get that, a shuttle or a Falcon or whatever. I just kind of occasionally check Marketplace to see what's out there, and none of these things are pristine or mint or anything like that. But some of them were kind of fun. I was happy to get the B-Wing, which I was excited about a couple of years ago. And then I kind of had them just sitting around, and during the pandemic actually is when I painted the wall and got the hooks and everything, and actually hung everything up. But so it's kind of a fun setup. But yeah, so nothing particularly. There's some of the original Kenner stuff in the background, but not a lot. I feel like most of it's more modern.
I gave you a solo layout so we can maximize the real estate here.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
Your stuff here.
So yeah, it looks good. It looks good on Zoom call.
I like your Thai bomber. Very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's got a walker back there, but the walker is missing the chin guns and stuff. They didn't have any of that, so none of this stuff. Everything's got something missing or broken or something. But the island. I also meant it to be something. He's older now, so he doesn't do it as much. But I always told my son he could come in here and take anything off the wall because they're meant to be played with, and nothing is too precious up on the wall.
You see, we got a comment from the gallery here. I don't know if you can read it.
Oh, the Salacious Clock. That is one that I missed out on. It was a Celebration 2015. Exclusive, and I missed out on it, and had an eBay alert set for it, and I forgot about it. Like literally years went by, and a few years ago somebody was selling it, and I jumped on it. I just love it. Yeah, his eyes go back and forth. He's kind of fun.
So let me ask you about a piece you did recently that, and if you can't go into it a lot, I completely understand.
Yeah.
You did a piece in recent past that got a lot of traction, or at least I saw it everywhere I went. Maybe it's just the algorithm putting me in the right place, but you interviewed Jake Lloyd.
Oh yeah.
At least you covered Jake Lloyd. Can you tell us about
Yeah.
the conception, the genesis of that? Because I know he was away from the spotlight for a while, and just your editorial about that experience.
Yeah. So the genesis of it, the idea for trying to talk to him, actually came. If anybody here was at Celebration in Anaheim in 2022 when they did the Obi-Wan Kenobi premiere, and Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen came out on stage, and I believe that was sort of the first time that the two of them were like together in sort of public like that, in that kind of setting, certainly at Celebration. And the crowd just lost it. It was the greatest moment for these two guys who had, been in the prequels, which were not particularly well received at the time, but have come to be just beloved by a lot of people in the fan base these days. And it was just really cool to see that sort of love and energy directed at those guys. And it just got me thinking and wondering about Jake Lloyd. And so I, shortly after that, tracked down his mom and reached out to his mom, because we had not heard from Jake Lloyd at all in a long time. And in fact, the last time we had heard from him was I think when about the time, or heard about him, was when he was arrested for and spent like 10 months in jail in like 2015 or something like that. And so it took a while to kind of earn his mom's trust. We would talk maybe every month or so briefly about how he was doing, and how she was doing, and kind of how they were managing all of this, and trying to get, the biggest issue for her was just trying to find him the right combination of treatment and medication to kind of keep him on an even keel. And so finally, in a little over a year ago, it was like March of 2024, she finally agreed to go on the record. So we did a big long interview, and it was just a print story, but she kind of laid out his entire struggle with schizophrenia, and everything that it had, everything that had happened to him, her, the family, all of it, kind of laid it out for the first time in a long time. And then I followed up with her in December of last year, right around Christmas time. She called me because I was always going to kind of do a follow-up, and it had almost been a year. So I had reached out to her, and she called me back one day, and she goes, yeah, I'll talk to you. We can do a follow-up. But she said, Jake wants to talk to you. And so it was like, okay, cool. So a couple days later, he called up, and we did a chat, and basically was able to kind of give an update. He's gone from being in a full-time inpatient facility to being in more of a part-time facility, where he is still going to therapy, but he can leave at will, kind of come and go as he pleases. And he's in a much better place to do regular therapy, regular medication. And it has, his mom says, really, really had a huge impact, because there was a time where he couldn't even, just the symptoms of schizophrenia and being off his medication for a long time. Like, it was hard for him to even form sentences that were understandable. And she goes, now he's just gotten a lot better. And she was like, we've started going to the movies again, because he can sit there for 2 hours and have the attention span to watch a movie. And so she was very open. We put all of that in. I put all of that in both the stories that I wrote. And I think, I think it will probably be a while before, if ever, he comes back into the public eye. But it does sound like he's genuinely doing better. And we'll see how it goes. I hope, everybody's pulling for him. And when I do both of those stories that I've done, the support is, and the sentiment and the love from Jake Lloyd fans is just huge. They all want him to know that they're out there pulling for him, which is cool.
Most definitely. I mean, one of the, I guess, tenets of our group is that, in addition to loving Star Wars, in addition to loving autographs, specifically behind the scenes, is we try to be very open about mental health in the group, particularly from me. I take medication daily for mental health. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, and again, you may not know this, but do you think any of that had to do with the original reception of those films? Did he have the guidance he needed in his childhood?
It's a totally fair question, because he had talked about kind of being bullied for his role as Anakin, and his mom knows that was a thing, and of course that's always been the kind of popular storyline, is that the reception of that, the backlash to that film drove him from acting, contributed to his mental illness, all of that. His mother does not believe that to be true. She says that when he was a kid, she was protecting him. He was out riding his bike, playing with friends, that he was not on the internet. He was not, she was shielding him from a lot of the broader discourse about this film. Now, obviously, kids on the street, kids at school, there was bullying there. But she said that she feels like this would have happened anyway, because she told me that on his father's side of the family, there was a history of schizophrenia, which she didn't know about.
Got it.
And so she feels, and the experts and the doctors that she has talked to over the years have told her that they believe this would have happened anyway, and that it might have been maybe exacerbated in some cases, but she also said that he quit acting because he didn't seem to be enjoying it anymore. He didn't enjoy the auditioning. He didn't enjoy sort of the process that you had to go through to do it. She said the family was going through a divorce at the time, and so he just kind of lost interest in it overall. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say, and I have not asked him that question directly. But talking to his mom, I think that she feels like it might have been a small factor, but that at the end of the day, probably would have happened anyway.
Great piece, with compassion. It was wonderful, and thank you for putting out there and shedding a light on that. Moving on to more positive things, you're an author. You're a co-author of a couple of Star Wars titles. Can you tell us the names? Let's help you move some units. Where can people find them?
Let's move some units. I don't get anything for it, but let's move some units. Yeah.
You don't get extra. You don't get some juice out of it if we sell some.
I don't. But I'm always happy to talk about them because it's fun, and I think they've been pretty well received. Star Wars Timelines was the first one I got to work on, which is kind of an in-universe timeline history book, more or less. And then the one that I really loved working on was actually, I do have one here. The Return of the Jedi visual archive, which is super fun. This this was a blast, because this was, kind of this mix of talking about it was largely, I consider it a behind the scenes book. Kelly Knox worked on it. St. Bende worked on it. And it's great. It's, we talk about concept art and costumes and sets and characters and all sorts of fun stuff. So it's kind of a neat one. And there's a version of this coming in September, November. On that's basically a Phantom Menace visual archive. So that one's.
Where can we find this? On Amazon?
Yeah, they're all on Amazon.
Barnes and Noble.
Where your local, your Barnes and Noble, wherever your favorite books
and
are.
What are we talking about? Price tag? $200, $300? What are we talking about?
Oh yes, no. Actually, you know what? The Timelines was on sale the other day for like $25, and I think the Jedi one was like $25 or $30 somewhere.
Look at that.
They were all running
deals. Anyone would pay $300 for that book. It's on sale for $25. I'm trying to be your infomercial guy. Right?
Well, I appreciate it. But yeah, it's super fun, and they're a lot of work, but they're a lot of fun, and yeah. So they're those three are out now, and then there's another one that I just started working on, which will be coming out in a couple of years. But
so you're saying we could do a book signing? We do autographs in my group.
Oh yeah, sure. I would. Yeah. I can sign a book plate. I can sign a book. Whatever you want. I'll do it for free.
I like how you're feeling.
Yeah,
everything. That's awesome. So here we got some notes for you. We got Brandon. I think you know him. He's saying hello.
Yes. Hey, Brandon. The great Brandon Winter, who, if you haven't seen either his great podcast, but also we were talking about Skeleton Crew. He's also got a great article on visual effects of Skeleton Crew on StarWars.com, which goes a lot into the model making with John Knoll and John Goodson, which is just super fun read.
Dill David asks, collect as much books as I can. It's super fun exploring game more knowledge. I'm glad books are still released. The digital age scares me.
Yes, me too. And I think that's the reason. I think that's one of the reasons I like the books, is because it's actually, when I worked in television for years, and everything is so ephemeral. Like, you work on it, it goes on TV, and then it's gone. It's just like, yes, they post them online, but it's not a very tangible thing, and it's fun to like. Oh yeah, Brandon is also a Star Wars author. Knows this. It's fun to like pick up a book and flip it open and see your name on the page with some other cool creative people. So it's kind of fun.
John Augustine, love the Timelines book. I got it for Christmas one year.
Oh, cool! That's awesome.
Still, David, the new ILM book looks mega.
Yeah, Ian Fales doing that one. That's I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the cover, but I'm really excited to see that one. I know they're very proud of it at ILM. They're very happy with how it turned out. So it's going to be a good one, I think.
I think so too. So what's next for you in terms of the Star Wars universe? You got the Phantom Menace Timelines book coming out. Are you doing goals that you're working on? You don't have to tell us if you're under an NDA or anything.
The Phantom Menace book will be the next one, and like I said, I feel like I should know this. I think it's September, if they haven't moved it, but that'll be out then, and then just kind of working on some extra the ILM Sky Sound projects here and there in between other work stuff, but and following all the goings on at IWI, because this is, it's funny because I'm not a big autograph collecting guy, and it's like, well, what the hell are you doing paying attention to this group? But what was always cool to me was obviously that aspect of it, all the great collections that everybody has amassed over the years. But the your philosophy behind it, I always thought it was really cool, kind of approaching it from, honoring these people who worked on these amazing, iconic things, but didn't always, reap the financial benefits of it years and years and years later. And I just love the fact that you do this, and keep the memory of a lot of the folks that we don't hear their names in the public very often.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's really kind of you.
Yeah,
Well,
really interested in it as a history project.
It didn't start. I didn't start out with the intention of doing anything like this. It started out very self-centered at the time. In 2010, I said kind of out loud to nobody, I'd like an autograph piece that collects the signatures of everybody that worked on the Imperial Walker. That's how we're called that now.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I thought I had a pretty good grasp of who had worked on it. I thought it's about a dozen people. It wound up being about 42 people.
Wow.
And it evolved very organically over time into, I realized that the people whose names weren't Phil Tippett, Dennis Muren,
right.
Joe Johnston, kind of the superstar ALMers,
right?
They were in positions now where any kind of supplemental income is welcome. Yep. So this turned into kind of a really mutually beneficial exercise. The fans get autographs from people they may not know about. The signers, in this case, these artists, get some nice supplemental income. And more importantly, what I always focus on is getting their names out there. A lot of people don't know what they did. Like, again, unless you're someone, Phil Tippett and John Berg are a great example of. John Berg has gotten a lot of recognition in the last 15 years. But up until then, it was primarily Phil Tippett, even though they were usually a team.
Right.
But John Berg is a little bit more of an introvert. And I'm not saying Phil Tippett's an extrovert, because he's not.
Right.
But for some reason, Phil has an aura about him, that he kind of draws people. And so he's become the bigger name. So I'm trying to shed the light equally and make sure their legacies aren't forgotten. And I think we share that passion.
Yeah. No, it's a noble effort. I love it.
Thank you.
And so I don't collect autographs, but have deep respect for everybody's projects and the things that they've been able to do and get some of these names, because some of them are not with us anymore. And preserving that, and the big projects are always fun when you guys display the Falcon projects or whatever your latest big one is, but it's fun to check all that stuff out. But
you before we go to the questions, you mentioned you have a couple yourself, some signatures you've acquired.
No, you know what? They're not signatures, but they are things that are special to me.
By all means.
So I'll start by telling a story about a mutual friend of ours. So as probably people know in this group, but I'll do a really brief history. So when ILM started in Van Nuys, California, then went to San Rafael, to Kerner Boulevard. The practical side of ILM was basically sold off in about 2005. And the physical space there on Kerner Boulevard was occupied by a couple of physical effects companies over the years, Kerner Optical and 3210. And then in the fall of 2023, the whole facility was basically closed down, went out of business. The landlord wasn't cooperating, a whole mess, but basically meant that the place was shut down, which is kind of chronicled in the third episode of the second season of Light and Magic. You see they actually shot at that going away party, essentially. But anyway, that night, as I was leaving, we had shot a whole story there ourselves for scripts, and I was leaving and went to. First of all, I didn't want to leave. I stayed as long as I could, because I was like walking the halls and just sort of absorbing the atmosphere. So I was leaving, and I walked up to say goodbye to our mutual friend Sean House. And Sean says, wait, he goes, wait a minute, don't leave. I was like, okay. So I was kind of standing there, and Sean comes back a couple minutes later, and he hands me this chunk of blue painted plaster. I'm kind of looking at it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. This what is this, Sean? And he goes, that is a piece of the planet Kijimi from The Rise of Skywalker. Because when they were making The Rise of Skywalker, Roger Guyette wanted to in the scene, they had this scene where Star Destroyer comes along and blows up the planet Kijimi, and to do that, they built the planet out of this plaster, painted it to look like a planet, and then on the main stage at 3210, the old ILM main stage, they blew up this planet. And it's there's a behind the scenes video that ILM did, which is really great, and they talk about how many explosive charges were in it, like, and they're microseconds apart. So like if you watch the movie, parts of the planet start to go and then the whole thing goes, and it all happens in a split second. Anyway, what Sean had handed me was a piece of Kijimi. That's it there. And then this is the final frame of the movie, where the planet's actually blowing up. And then this is the actual explosion on the main stage at what was then 3210. This was in when was this? July of 2019. So I had this whole like frame put together to the one and only screen used piece of anything that I have that's Star Wars related. So I'm very happy to have that. So that hangs outside of my.
That's beautifully displayed. You did a beautiful job there, man. I know you probably had it done, but still beautifully done.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then the other thing that as I was there that night, they had, or actually we spent a couple of days at 3210 talking to Sean and doing our story. And as you're walking around, they had all these Apple boxes. So if you don't know, an Apple box they use on movie sets to raise the height of something. Sometimes if an actor is short, they'll put them on an Apple box and raise them up a little bit. They'll put, they use them for a million different things. They're kind of a utility thing. And so when 3210 closed down, they auctioned off all that stuff that was laying around that they had. And one of the things that I got, and this one's really big and unwieldy because I've got it mounted in a frame, but I came away with
oh my God, that's beautiful.
With an Apple box that is has the ILM logo on it. But what's cool about it, and I've tried to look at every behind the scenes photo I can find to figure out if it shows up anywhere, but it's got on this side of it some blue chroma key paint. So like they painted it. It's got like blue paint splashed, especially on the backside. So I don't know when or where, it had to be pre 2005 because that's when ILM was still there. So I have in my headcanon that this was some sort of Apple box that was on the set for all the prequels. So
that is a thing of beauty, man. That's absolutely beautifully displayed. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I was happy. I was happy to have that little piece of piece of history.
Bill David says, "Gorgeous. I love how weathered and beaten it up it is. Very nice."
Yeah. It's pretty beat up.
We have a question from Green Panda Guy. What is Clayton's main driving force to write? Does he ever write for other franchises?
I have never written for other franchises. Wouldn't know the first thing about it. Main driving force to write, I think, is just finding these interesting, untold, behind the scenes stories that I think are fun and that and kind of like Hector does with trying to keep these names out there, kind of honoring a little bit of the history, but also, ILM is still innovating in a lot of different ways. I did an interview the other day with one of their virtual production supervisors, who runs the stagecraft volume and all of that. And he said to me, he goes, we're still as a company on, we don't even say the leading edge. We call it the bleeding edge because we're constantly, innovating stuff on set, figuring out things that we've never done before. And I think that's cool. There are no visual effects companies that have been around for 50 years. And to think that they are still finding ways to innovate and do things better and before anybody else has done them, which then, of course, become industry standard and everybody kind of rushes in to follow up, is a pretty remarkable thing. So kind of finding all those angles and those stories to tell, there's a million of them out there. And so I think that's kind of what drives me a little bit.
That's awesome. We have a compliment from Nick Weiss. Timelines is an awesome book.
Hey, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Oh, you got to.
It was a collective effort. I was only a tiny bit of it, but it's a good one. I'm glad you like it.
Type here to the group. Ask us questions. What is your favorite Star Wars film? Let me ask you that. We should have started with that. It would probably
started with that. Yeah.
We Star Wars fans, we like to bucket people. We like to know prequels guy, sequels guy. What's your favorite Star Wars film?
Yeah, definitely Empire. Yeah, definitely Empire. I loved the original, but I was just old enough to go and see Empire in the theater. And I just remember all the buzz and excitement around it when it came out, and standing in line for like 4 hours to go see it. Yeah, I just love it. I love the way that it moves from different locations that are so different and varied. And I love the behind the scenes stuff, like the production design and the set building. Like, I am one of those nerds that like will sit there and watch Empire Strikes Back with J.W. Rinsler's great Blueprints book open, like on my lap, and I'll be like looking at the Hoth set, and like trying to figure out, oh yeah, the camera must have been here, and this is the hallway they were walking down, and that's where that was, and that's my level of ridiculousness.
I'm right there with you, and it's not because it's absolutely true. There is first of all, for the Empire Strikes Back, there's a kind of magic that was captured in that film. I don't know what it is. It's what the great films all have in common.
Yeah,
you can't manufacture. There's some kind of alchemy in the air for the Empire Strikes Back that was caught on film. It just feels populated. It feels real. It feels like it's happening. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it is beautiful. Peter Shasitsky, the director of photography, the lighting,
yes,
is beautiful, but it also blends with all of the effects and everything else. The matte paintings, everything else just really works visually together. There's no jarring transitions between anything. Empire still has some of my favorite music. No offense to the prequels and Duel of the Fates and all of those great pieces, but Empire still has some of my favorite pieces of music to it. So yeah, if I'm like at home and I'm like in the kitchen, like doing something, cooking or whatever, I'll just kind of put that on. It's like my go-to just default Star Wars movie.
I completely agree, and I share your passion for having supplemental material as you're going and understand. It's a kind of cinematic art anthropology is what I say. It's
that's good. Yeah. I agree with that.
We're trying to understand who made these movies, what did they do. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. It's I went up to when Celebration London. I took the train up to Elstree just to walk around. I just walked around the perimeter basically, and stood there in the space where I know the stage used to be that housed the Hoth set. It's now a supermarket and a parking lot. When the studio fell on hard times, they sold some of the land, and that was one of the casualties. But
well, you talk about hallowed spaces and them being gone. I think to tie this all together, the 3210 leaving, and Joe Johnston speaks to it in episode 3 of this Light and Magic season 2. It was hallowed ground, and you said yourself, you walked around that building. There's a mysticism there. I know we're probably projecting it ourselves, but there is some aura there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, there is something. There is something about it. And I remember that night at the 3210 closing, Dennis Murin, I was asking him about it, and he told me something funny. He goes, "I wish I could go into main stage with a couple of glass bottles and just bottle up the air, and get the whiffs and the molecules of pyro residue and paint and wood and glue and all of these things that made this place what it was, and just bottle that up and keep it, and somehow maybe open it up a few years later to try and remember what it was like." But it's like these aren't just four walls that and it's like you're walking down the hall and you realize, oh, this was the editing room where they edited Return of the Jedi. Like this is where George was sitting and doing it. Like it's so for those of us who are fans and appreciate that kind of stuff, it's like that's it is hallowed ground. It is completely hallowed ground.
Jill Ross, what's been your favorite part of series 1 and 2, Light and Magic?
Favorite part of series 1 and 2? Seeing Hector in the group shot of episode 3.
I'm hard to miss. By the way, my question was going to be, we're roughly the same age. I've picked up from contextual clues myself. I don't know how old you are, but I think you're in the ballpark. How do you stay so TV slim? Is it because you're in the industry? I have a set
slim maybe in the face, not in the gut. I got to tell you that. Yeah, I mean, lucky, I guess, to have some sort of good genes that I haven't. But I no, seriously, I could around the gut. I'm not gonna. Yeah. Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's that was part of it. Being on TV for so long, you kind of gotta maintain a certain level of bodily maintenance. But it's probably the biggest motivator.
So, what's been your favorite part of the series 1 and 2, aside from me?
I think. I was happy to see that they didn't shy away from some of the uncomfortable dynamics. When, for example, when certain people were invited to go north and others weren't, and some of the personalities. And I thought it was really. I thought it was brave of Phil Tippett to talk about his mental health struggles, and they got into that and how this wasn't all just fun and games. And so I appreciated that overall aspect. There was a kind of frankness and an honesty to it that I thought was really cool. I will say there was one moment that I was glad they kind of talked about, and I wish in some ways that they had branched out beyond Star Wars a little bit more, because they talked about something that is in this original Light and Magic book, which I always loved, and that was the story of the Freeling house model from Poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great, as I sit here, I'll see if I can find it, but I was glad they included this in Light and Magic, because it was always one of my favorite stories of Richard Edlund. They had this elaborate model that they built for Poltergeist, where the house has to implode, and it has to do it very quickly because they're shooting at high speeds. And they built this, however many tens of thousands of dollars that they spent on this model, and they only had one chance to blow it up. And so one of my favorite things about this book was this whole explanation of how they did it. Like they took the house, they set it on its side, and they were shooting down at it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the great things is that as it was being pulled into this like vacuum to implode, in order to have it completely break apart and go into the vacuum and create the idea that it was going into one specific space in the frame. Richard Edlund stood there with a shotgun and blasted away at this model. And I don't know, can't remember if I knew that or if I read that somewhere. Oh yeah, pump shotguns. Yeah. So they're like blasting away at this balsa wood and glass model on the main stage at ILM. And I always loved that story. And I thought, think about trying that in 2025 and what the HR people at whatever company, they would just have a heart attack if they. So anyway, they talked about that and they put that into the first season of Light and Magic. And I was so happy because that was always one of my favorite stories and things that they had pulled off, which like standing on the main stage, blasting away at this model with shotguns. It blows me away that they got away with that.
The stories from these films are legion. There's so many, and you've been to the area. It's this in San Rafael, this nondescript industrial strip. You would never know that so many indelible moments from our childhoods, our adolescent, our formative years were created in this unremarkable looking place.
Yeah, totally. And same with the Valjean Avenue location. You could pass by that place a million times and never have any idea what was
born there. Yeah,
what was born there. My one regret is I wish I could have seen the Kerner location back when it was a much more of a sprawling campus. By the end there, 3210 was basically the two buildings. Which still had some cool stuff. The original theater, the C building theater, and the main stage and all of that. But you look at some of the pictures from like prequel era when they were spread out all over that area. And that would have been fun to see when they were still putting the big models out in the parking lot and shooting the pod racing stadium and all that kind of fun stuff. Naboo.
Clayton, I can't thank you enough for spending a little bit of your time with us tonight.
Yeah.
It's so awesome to meet somebody with such a shared passion for these folks and for this institution that was Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
And your book is called Star Wars Timelines, Return of the Jedi. Star Wars Timelines, The Phantom Menace, coming up later this year.
Yep.
Yes. You can find them on Amazon for much less than $200, $25 range. Clayton, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Hector, thank you very much. And let's do it again. And thank you for what you do, sir.
Thank you. Hope to see you out there soon. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right. For everyone else who stayed, that was Clayton Sandell. Really appreciate you guys staying on. Hopefully you got some of your questions in. I really appreciate you asking them. I will resume with the inventory drops at 7 p.m. Chicago time, which is about 55 minutes from now. Okay, so see you guys then. Thank you very much.